When we imagine distant or not so distant future for humanity, we see visions not only of exciting space travel and planetary colonization, but also of the possible decline of human civilization. And really, there aren't many variations on how this end might come about. It's either danger from space, hostile extraterrestrials with superior alien technology, or the aftermath of a nuclear catastrophe, where the remnants of humanity are locked in subway stations or bunkers indefinitely.
Welcome to Strategic Air Command, Springfield Station. If you're watching this tape, half the world is doomed.
Says you, General Dead Guy.
And after decades, a brave few emerge to wander through a burnt desert or face a post-nuclear ice age. The third scenario is a global epidemic that in the best case simply kills its victims, or in the worst case transforms them into aggressive, bloodthirsty creatures, entirely different from humans, the so-called zombie apocalypse. And today we will talk about games that explore this last viral scenario. I decided to separate games about zombies and other mutants, so there will be a different video for the latter. This list includes both older titles and more recent ones. And yes, it's a list, not a ranking, cause only a couple of games here really stand out. For more on the issues facing this genre in both movies and games, check out my other video. And let me know in the comments if you'd like similar lists for games about space adventures or post-nuclear worlds. Well, now get ready to dive into chaos and survival. Here are 20 games about the zombie apocalypse. Land of the Dead is a first-person shooter from 2005 and a prequel to George Romero's film of the same name. For some unexplained reason, the dead suddenly start coming back to life, and their attacks on the living quickly throw the world into chaos. The player takes on the role of a farmer named Jack, who notices a strange figure on his ranch. It soon becomes clear that uninvited visitors are more than one, and that all of them are undead. After discovering that the neighboring farms are empty and their owners are dead, Jack sets out for the city to seek help, only to find it destroyed and overrun with zombies. Now he must locate a safe haven and try to reach it unscathed. Although the game's graphics have aged over nearly 20 years, its dark, eerie atmosphere can still deliver tense moments. Another series of first-person zombie shooters is the Left 4 Dead duology. There is no real plot or storyline here. Gameplay is based on cooperative play for 4 people, with bots filling in if you play solo. The game is structured as a series of campaigns, each depicting different stages of the character's journey through infected areas. The campaign levels are laid out like restricted corridors filled with zombies, and they are connected by safe rooms or shelters, where players can catch a break from attackers, find weapons, ammunition and first aid kits. Alongside teamwork, essential for effective defense and covering each other, the main feature of Left 4 Dead is its fast, aggressive enemies who attack immediately when players approach, which was quite unique for games of this genre in the late 2000s. Shellshock 2 Blood Trails is a first-person shooter set during the Vietnam War, combining elements of military action and horror. The game's dark storyline revolves around a mysterious virus. The plot kicks off when the United States Army launches its secret Operation White Knight, aimed at capturing a mysterious cargo in Cambodia. A squad of soldiers sent off this mission vanishes without a trace, only for one survivor to reappear, infected, insane and soon on the run. The player controls Nate Doll, a United States Army soldier and brother of the returned survivor. Nate's search for his brother leads him to discover that the cargo contains a virus that turns people into bloodthirsty, insane creatures. Throughout the game, Nate battles not only hostile Vietnamese soldiers, but also infected troopers who have lost their humanity. The story is filled with dark, gruesome scenes that create an atmosphere of fear and despair. The hero faces both physical and psychological horrors as he tries to contain the virus and find his brother before he completely loses his mind. Resident Evil, one of the most famous and influential franchises in the survival horror genre, comes from the Japanese company Capcom and can feature in both zombie and mutant lists. The game follows humanity's struggle with various forms of biological weapons created by the Umbrella Corporation. Under the pretense of pharmaceutical research, Umbrella was actually developing viruses that could turn living organisms into mutants and the undead. In their secret labs, the employees of the corporation conduct inhumane experiments that lead to the creation of biological monsters and other horrible creatures. The uncontrolled release of one virus resulted in the devastation of Raccoon City and the transformation of its inhabitants into zombies. The city was ultimately destroyed by a nuclear strike to prevent the spread of the virus. Even though the exposure of Umbrella's involvement in bioterrorism led to its assets being frozen and staff disbanded, the corporation's legacy lives on. Former employees and research now serve other dark organizations that continue exploiting biotechnologies for their own purposes. Players assume the roles of special agents or everyday people, dealing with the fallout of Umbrella's experiments worldwide. Although the franchise began in 1996, today Capcom is gradually reissuing its original titles with updated graphics, so players can relive Resident Evil's thrilling atmosphere in modern visuals.
Don't be afraid, okay? Go.
Another iconic universe built around the zombie apocalypse is The Walking Dead, which originally started as a comic book series. Its commercial success and engaging storyline allowed the TV series to span 11 seasons, drawing in video game developers interested in the franchise. The Walking Dead Survival Instinct is a first-person shooter and survival horror game that serves as a prequel to the TV series, focusing on brothers Daryl and Merle Dixon. The player controls Daryl Dixon, who not long after the zombie apocalypse begins, goes hunting in the forest along with his father, uncle and a small group of survivors. Suddenly, they are attacked by zombies, leaving Daryl's father dead, his uncle beaten, and no one left but him and Daryl. The two decide to relocate to a safer area, traveling by car to various towns and meeting survivors in need of help. Eventually, they reach a farmer camp overrun by zombies. After wandering around the camp and retrieving supplies, Daryl returns to find his uncle transformed. He kills him and continues alone, determined to find his last close relative Merle, and head to safety in Atlanta. The game places a lot of emphasis on stealth, as facing a group of zombies openly often ends in death. One of the game's key mechanics is managing resources and a team of survivors that Daryl encounters along his journey. The player can choose whether to recruit new people, send them on missions or keep them in safe spots. These decisions affect the storyline and the game's outcome. The next project in the Walker's universe is simply titled The Walking Dead. Unlike its predecessor, this game is based on the comics and retains their visual style. It's primarily known for its emotionally intense plot and the deep moral choices that player must make throughout the game. The protagonist is Lee Everett, a former college professor arrested for the murder of his wife's lover. At the beginning of the game, Lee is being transported in a police car, but ends up in an accident involving a zombie. He survives the crash and finds refuge in a house where he meets a young girl named Clementine, whose parents are missing. Lee takes Clementine under his care and vows to protect her at all costs. Together, they set out on a dangerous journey to find a safe haven and possibly locate her parents. Along the way, they encounter other survivors and form a small group with them. Together, they face various threats, including zombies and hostile humans, along with tragic losses and betrayals that deepen the theme of survival in a world where humanity is also at risk. The game presents moral choices that affect plot development and character relationships. Lee often has to decide whom to help, whom to let go, and what sacrifices to make for the safety of the group. Each player's choice has lasting consequences, altering the fates of characters and the whole story's outcome. Finally, Overkill's The Walking Dead is a first-person shooter that builds on the cooperative gameplay concept of Left 4 Dead, supporting up to 4 players. Each character has unique skills and abilities. Teamwork is essential as players explore areas in search of supplies, equipment, and other survivors, as well as complete combat missions. The game incorporates stealth, as every sound can attract walkers, and any mistake can summon the Horde. A unique mechanic introduced by the game is the weapon durability system. Without proper care, weapons can malfunction, making shooting more challenging. For example, an automatic rifle or a pistol might jam, optics may become dirty, and silencers can break. Besides the cooperative mode, the game includes a storyline set in Washington, D.C. Another Left 4 Dead style game, World War Z by Cyber Interactive, is a third-person cooperative shooter released in 2019, also designed for 4 players. Similar to the movie with Brad Pitt, massive zombie hordes can interact to achieve a common goal. For example, they can climb over each other, forming zombie pyramids. But unlike the movie's emphasis on fleeing, here players actively defend themselves by taking strategic positions and reinforcing them with barbed wire, electric fences, machine guns, and turrets. The game doesn't focus on a single location, but spans episodes set in various parts of a world, struck by a zombie apocalypse. Players can choose from 8 character classes, each with unique equipment and skills, that can be upgraded with in-game currency earned through special missions. There is also a PvP mod, where 2 teams, in addition to confronting each other, must fend off waves of zombies.
Reloading!
However, the true spiritual successor to the Left 4 Dead series is considered to be Back 4 Blood, released in 2021, which shares some of the original game's creators. It is the same first-person shooting in a cooperative mode for 4 players, but Back 4 Blood introduces a card system as a major innovation. At the beginning of each level, players assemble decks of cards that adjust various gameplay elements, such as health, inflicted and received damage, and stamina. Artificial intelligence also uses corruption cards to hinder players' progress. The game's plot involves an unknown parasite discovered in Antarctic ice, which scientists took to a lab for study. The parasite escapes, infecting the entire staff and spreading further. The world, as always unprepared for the epidemic, is plunged into chaos. Among other things, Back 4 Blood offers a PvP mode, where one team of 8 players act as humans and the other as mutated infected, battling in the closed arenas. Dead Island is an open-world first-person action RPG, where the player controls one of 4 survivors immune to a virus that turns humans into the undead. The game also supports cooperative play. The first part of the action is set on the tropical island of Bano, while the second takes place in no less sunny and bright California. Completing missions and fighting zombies, mutants and hostile survivors, the heroes work to find out who or what is behind the virus's origins. And the primary objective is not only to survive, but also find a way off the island or out of the quarantine zone. One of the game's main attractions is the intense and spectacular melee combat system, with a wide variety of weapons that can be customized for varied gameplay. However, despite cool graphics, especially in the second part, colorful dismemberment and some kind of plot, I think the series often lacks a sense of horror or survival tension typical of the genre. Crossing the GTA 5 environment and the eerie atmosphere of death and zombies without introducing day-night cycles is like adding characters with machine guns and tanks to medieval battles. But wait, one such project is already under development today.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Well, this kind of thing clearly isn't for everyone. Share your thoughts about it in the comments. Dead Rising, a series of open-world action games from Capcom, the creators of the famous Resident Evil, is almost a parody of the zombie apocalypse genre. Here zombies are generally slow and passive, barely reacting to the player's presence, making them feel more like moving punching bags than actual threats. Among other things, this is aided by a well-designed combat system, as almost any object around can be used as a weapon on the approaching zombies, from TVs and printing shears to golf clubs and guitars. While the variety is entertaining, items break down quickly, especially those not meant for combat, so real weapons are also available. Outfits for the characters add to the game's humorous tone, resembling in some way the Saints Row series, but here it's taken to an even greater level of absurdity. Despite all this trash, each episode of the series does include a plot, which, as is the case with most projects, focuses on the search for the causes of the epidemic. Dead State is an RPG game with survival elements, where the player leads a group of survivors in a small town. At the very beginning of the zombie apocalypse, the protagonist survives a plane crash over Central Texas, near the functional town of Splendid, and is rescued along with a small group of survivors, who have taken refuge in the local public school, turning it into their shelter. As the already small society begins to disintegrate, the player must organize this handful of allies, become their leader and take responsibility for securing their shelter, finding food and supplies, and building relationships with other groups. The story progresses through missions and interactions with various characters, who can either join your group or become enemies depending on your decisions. The game highlights the difficulties of survival in a post-apocalyptic world, where aside from the dangers posed by zombies and hostile people outside the camp, it's no small challenge to maintain a comfortable psychological atmosphere within your own team. Similar challenges await in the open-world survivor game series State of Decay. Your hometown and the world at large are overrun by a zombie infection. Controlling a group of survivors, your tasks include collecting resources, strengthening your base, and completing various missions. Each character in the group has unique skills and traits, so losing one member can significantly affect the life of the entire community. It is up to the player's decisions to determine who survives and who dies. In the second part, in addition to zombies, bandits and other hostile creatures, each member of your group is threatened by the Blood Plague, which transforms infected people and animals into faster, more dangerous and aggressive zombies. The player must find medicine to save their group from this terrible disease, or face the difficult choice of what to do when there's no cure. The game also includes elements of relationship management within the team. Conflicts among characters can lead to the community's collapse or even deaths. The player must make tough decisions to maintain unity, ensuring safety and morale, with the ultimate goal of long-term survival in this post-apocalyptic world. The first-person cooperative shooter and survival horror game No More Room in Hell was initially developed as a zombie modification of Half-Life 2 on the Source engine and was recognized as Mod of the Year by several gaming publications. The player takes on the role of one of 8 survivors. The game features 2 modes, Objective and Survival. In Objective mode, players follow the game's instructions, with maps offering varied objectives, items, and routes that change with each playthrough. In Survival mode, players defend specific sectors of the map from waves of advancing zombies. The number of waves gradually increases, and occasionally military helicopters drop supplies. After surviving a set number of waves, a rescue vehicle arrives to take the survivors to safety. Also in June, it was announced at the Summer Game Fest that development of the sequel is finally complete, with the game set to enter early access after Halloween, at the beginning of November. While modern technology often relegates side-scrolling games to mobile devices rather than PCs, the platformer with survival horror elements Deadlight delivers a more impactful atmosphere than many of the previously mentioned 3D titles, along with a touching story. The game is set in an alternate 1986. The protagonist Randall Wayne, a former park ranger, searches for his missing wife and daughter amid the ruins of a Seattle decimated by a zombie infection. Through flashbacks, inner monologues, and pages from Randall's diary, players gradually uncover his past, filled with dark secrets and tragedies that have led him on this perilous journey. The gameplay focuses more on survival than combat. The player must avoid direct confrontations, solve puzzles, and use the environment creatively to overcome obstacles, all while facing dangers from both zombies and desperate humans. Survival horror ZombiU offers players the opportunity to explore a grim post-apocalyptic London, where some virus has as usual turned people into bloodthirsty zombies. Players control a random survivor who takes refuge in an underground shelter run by a mysterious man named Prepper. This enigmatic character communicates via radio, guiding the player through tasks to secure food, medicine, and weapons. Along the way, the player learns of an ancient order, the Crows of D, whose founder predicted the apocalypse 400 years ago. You will have to unravel the mystery of the epidemic by exploring London's abandoned streets, historical landmarks, and hidden dungeons, all while managing scarce resources and battling various enemies. A key feature of ZombiU is its permadeath mechanic. If a survivor dies, often after just one bite, they become a zombie, and the player starts anew with a different character. However, it's possible to track down the former character to reclaim lost resources, adding tension and weight to every decision. If real-time strategy is your genre, there are billions by no mention games is what you need. Here you will have to take responsibility not for an individual or a small group, but for an entire settlement of remnants of humanity who survived the zombie apocalypse. Starting with a small colony, players must extract resources, construct buildings, research new technologies, and create an army to defend against massive zombie hordes that can attack at any moment. Effective planning and management are essential, as even a minor breach in defenses can lead to catastrophic results. The game lacks a storyline, but each playthrough presents unique conditions and challenges. The Deadlight series provides open-world action with diverse melee weapons to take down hordes of zombies, and a parkour system for scaling buildings, dodging enemies, and unleashing acrobatic attacks. While the games are not plot-connected, they share a core concept. A metropolis becomes ground zero for a viral epidemic and is subsequently quarantined. Its inhabitants are forced to fight for their lives among zombies and other survivors. The protagonist, often tied to the development of an antiviral vaccine, must align with survivor factions, vying for control over the city's resources and territories. All choices made during the storyline influence the city's development, its inhabitants' fates, and the game's ending. Despite lacking a storyline, the open-world survival simulator Project Zomboid delivers deeper and more compelling experiences than many of the cooperative games I've described today. Starting as one of the survivors, the player must last as long as possible in a world where death is inevitable. The player manages the character's needs for food, water, sleep, and safety, while gathering resources, building shelter, and navigating dangers like zombies and hostile humans. As the survival period extends, the protagonist faces increasingly serious challenges, such as epidemics, resource shortages, power and water outages, as well as other in-game events that complicate an already difficult existence during a zombie apocalypse. The player can also encounter other survivors, both peaceful and hostile, and interact with them. And the tagline at the beginning, "This is how you died," sets the tone for a game where every action and mistake carries permanent consequences. Another game that treats each day as an achievement is the open-world action-adventure Days Gone. While you won't die of thirst or eat rotten food here like in Project Zomboid, daily outings still bring risks, whether from hostile survivors, gangs, wild animals, or infected known within the game by the name of Freakers. You never know which of these sometimes totally unexpected confrontations may be your last one, especially at higher levels of difficulty. Also, I'd like to add that in my opinion, the story in Days Gone is in some respects not inferior to that in The Last of Us. The story follows Deacon St. John, a former biker and war veteran searching for his wife Sarah, 2 years after sending her to a survival camp during the outbreak. Believing she may still be alive, Deacon uncovers the virus's nature and origins, while building alliances, facing enemies, and battling freak hordes that pose significant threats. And that's all for today. I consider the famous The Last of Us to be more about mutants than zombies, so it will definitely appear in one of the next videos. But you have to agree that even without this game, the list turned out to be quite impressive. Write in the comments which of the listed projects you have already played or would like to play, and also don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new interesting videos.